Ladies and gentlemen, can we please bid welcome the governor the deputy governor of the state and the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. Can we put our hands together, please? Can we? So let's go straight to the issues here as I call on Mrs. Jumoke Anifowoshe as she takes the welcome address. Can we put our hands together for her, please, as she comes up? Let's keep clapping as she comes here. Thank you so much.
The chairman of this occasion, Senator Dr. Bode Olajumoke, the keynote speaker, His Excellency Malam Nasir El-Rufai, Governor of Kaduna State, the representative of the Governor of Ondo State, His Deputy, His Excellency Honorable Agbola Ajayi, the Ooni of Ife, ably represented by Kabiyesi, and my own Kabiyesi, the Olowo Ofowo, Ọba Gbadegesin Ogunoye III. The Kabiyesi, the Regent of Ayeka, Her Excellency Oba Princess Bajowa Yawa. The Kabiyesi, the Alara of Ilara, all the other Kabiyesis and chiefs who are here, all are invited guests. My women group, Association of Female Politicians of Ondo State. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have a very short welcome address. Please, you allow me to read. On behalf of Ajasin Foundation, I welcome you all to the 2019 Colloquium. Today is another epoch-making occasion in the life of Ajasin Foundation, as it marks its 2019 Colloquium, which has become a veritable forum to discuss issues of national importance. Briefly, the story of Ajasin Foundation started in 1999 with the aim of immortalizing the name, ideas, and principles of late Chief Michael Adekunle Ajasin, the first civilian governor of the old Ondo State. The annual colloquium also doubles as the posthumous birthday of the late politician, educationist, elder statesman, and true Democrat. If he was alive today, he would have been 111 years old. Papa's life was marked by unwavering belief in the cause of social justice, equity, and fair play. Very close to his heart were principles of accountability, transparency, and probity. As an educationist, Chief Ajasin's contributions can never be forgotten, not only in the old Ondo State, which he governed diligently, but across the country and elsewhere. In fact, the free education policy of the Action Group, AG, which was responsible for the educational revolution in the Western region, was authored by him. As an elder statesman, Chief Adekunle Ajasin contributed tremendously towards salvaging the country from the firm grip of military dictatorship and succeeded working with like minds in ushering in a democratic government. The colloquium has succeeded in creating a framework of discourse over the years and has preferred solutions that advance democracy, national unity, and good governance. This year, given the current situation in Nigeria, there is no better time to discuss the theme of this year's colloquium: promoting economic development, social justice, and rule of law as pathways to stability, peace, and prosperity in Nigeria. As we gather today, it is hoped that the presentations by the keynote speaker, His Excellency Malam Nasri El-Rufai, the discussants and contributions from the floor will produce a template that will enable Nigeria to a just, stable, and economically developed country. Before I take my seat, I must appreciate the chairman of today's occasion, Senator Dr. Bode Olajumoke, who has been a consistent supporter of the foundation in cash and kind since inception. I do not want to usurp the position of the person who will give the vote of thanks, but I cannot but say a big thank you to His Excellency Malam Nasri El-Rufai for taking time out to be with us in Ondo State today, for honoring us, Your Excellency. May honor never depart from you. Amen. To the discussants, I say a big thank you to Professor Adenike Oshofison, the first female professor of computer science in Nigeria. Dr. Olufemi Adu, a member of the formidable platform in Ondo State, Libra platform. And to my sister and my junior in school, Honorable Engineer Janet Febi Adeyemi, I thank you for coming. You came all the way from Abuja because of this colloquium. To our Deputy Governor, His Excellency Honorable Agbola Ajayi, I say thank you very much for standing in for Arakunrin. To all all of you are guests, I thank you most sincerely for turning up for this occasion. I wish you safe journey to your various destinations. Thank you.
Can we put our hands together for her, please? That's Mrs. Jumoke Anifowose with that welcome address. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we now call on the chairman, Senator Dr. Bode Olajumoke, for the opening remarks. Can we put our hands together for him, please? Thank you so much.
The governor of Kaduna State, Malam El-Rufai, I don't want to make a mistake, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, you are welcome. The deputy governor of Ondo State, Kabiyesi, the Ooni representative, our own Kabiyesi, latest in town, the discussant, and I like to stand on existing protocol as established by Mrs. Anifowose. Let me congratulate the chairman and members of the board of trustees of Ajasin Foundation. We have eminent people on that board, ably led by Baba, Bishop Bonigi. And I have my own auntie, our wife, Mrs. Ajasin, who is the last born of the Ajasins. Papa was the firstborn, and Mama was the last born. She's still kicking. She's still kicking. She's 95. I saw her some 2-3 months ago. Still very much intact up there. You know, the Ajasins are special breed, you know. And I'm sure she would have loved to be here, but her spirit is here with us. I congratulate the children of Baba. I do so because I am aware that it's not an easy task to set up a foundation and sustain it. The foundation, I believe, will be 20 years old day after tomorrow. Is it? Okay. They set up the foundation just 2 years after the exit of Baba. If you try to write a book, you know what I'm talking about. They have to work, the board of trustees have to organize and think of how to sustain the momentum. This year we're having an eminent erudite in the governor of Kaduna coming to talk to us about contemporary issues. And of course you have eminent discussants to add their own bits to what Malam El-Rufai will be giving us. It's nice to educate your children. And I'm sure Baba and Mama up there. By the way, Mama also was an old auntie of mine. She was the daughter of the great Tenabe of Idwani. And I recall that Mama was often, when she was alive, talking about home. Her father was the first to bring Christianity to our community. I am so proud of the children of Baba for continuing ensuring that the legacy or Papa sustained. You know, you have some children after the old man is gone. They will sell whatever is left in the place and just forget about the old man. They have behaved excellently well, and I congratulate you. I'm sure I don't like to take time when we have a guest speaker, not only just a guest speaker, but somebody who we believe we're going to gather a lot from. Also, we have discussants that I know will be making enormous inputs into today's lecture. So without much ado, I want to give room so that we can, I know some of you have been here for since about 11 o'clock, especially those of you who know me very well. When we say 11, it must be 11 o'clock. But Mrs. Anefoshi called me last night to say Malam Rufai had indicated that he will be leaving Kaduna about 11:30. So we are looking at a little bit after 12 before kicking off. I know some of you have been here and told Bashar, I call him the second in command to the original Bashar of Oka. That's my personal Bode Olajumoke. Bashar Arogbofa. I'm told I've been here. He's a stickler for time, and so many other people. So we're not going to waste much of our time. I want you to relax and enjoy, and I'm sure there will be opportunity for you all to make inputs into the discussion. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Can we put our hands together for Senator Dr. Bode Olajumoke, the chairman of this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce someone who is going to introduce someone. Is Dr. Omotoyibo, the W of the Adekunle Ajasin University. Can we put our hands together for him, please?
Thank you very much. God bless. The chairman, my Ajasin, and other erudite scholars and participants here. I want to introduce my professor. He saw me through first degree, saw me through second degree, and saw me through PhD. I have one everywhere. And he's going to take number 6 of the order of events here. That's the Secretary of Keynote Speaker. The erudite scholar, the former dean, teacher education, University of Ibadan, the current HOD, Arts and Social Education, University of Ibadan, one of the coordinators of this program, is going to take that number 6. I'm talking about no other person than one of the best professors in Nigeria, Professor C.O.O. Colloquium.
Thank you so much. Because of our time, our royal fathers on the table, the Deputy Governor of our state, representing our Governor, the Governor of Kaduna State, our guest lecturer, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My job is very simple. It is to introduce the guest lecturer, whom we all know. But because of the nature of this kind of program, a citation has to be read. So this is an abridged version of the citation of Malam El-Rufai OFR. Malam Naisri El-Rufai, the Archbishop of Gondesa, has to stand and remain standing. Thank you so much, sir. Malam Nasri El-Aman El-Rufai cannot be missed in the crowd. You can see that already. His compact size is in inverse proportion to the immensity of his many talents and the effervescence of his charm. You can hardly meet a more self-assured man, a person who values the life of the mind, invests in its cultivation, and repeatedly stands out for his application of intellect and logic. He has been described as one of the most educated and able Nigerians in any field, and certainly one of the very best to have held public office, and one of the most committed to the public good. Nasri El-Rufai's talents are strengthened by a tough character built on the old values that are anchored on hard work, integrity, and resilience. You can see that we didn't make a mistake in asking him to come speak today in honor of our father and grandfather, by Emir Ajasin, who was a man of integrity, resilience, hard work, and honor. This awesome talent was nurtured from this very land, and he has devoted himself to public service to make it a better place for all. Nasri El-Rufai was born to Malam Ahmad Rufai, a native of Zaria, who was then living in rural Dandawa in 1960, the year of independence. After completing primary school in Kaduna, his mind was sharpened at Barewa College and further refined at Ahmadu Bello University, where he graduated with first-class honors in quantity surveying. In 1982, shortly after his return to Kaduna, following his NYSC in Abeokuta, he founded El-Rufai and Partners, a foremost quantity surveying consultancy firm, and he came into prominence as a leader in his professional field, while also investing in the future of young people by teaching part-time in ABU, his alma mater. Not only did he run a successful business, El-Rufai also acquired an MBA and sufficient training in computer science to ginger him into becoming one of the first investors in the internet service provision sector in Nigeria. He made friends across Nigeria who admire him for his strength of character, integrity, and compassion. The sheer breadth of El-Rufai's knowledge, his broad mind, the clarity of his analysis, and his competence soon brought him to the attention of General Absalam Abubakar, who in 1998 appointed him to the Policy Implementation and Monitoring Committee, which was charged to help manage the transition program that led to the handover to the democratically elected government in 1999. In that capacity, he interfaced with the World Bank, the IMF, and other agencies, and helped draft the legislation that established the Bureau of Public Enterprises. Little did he know that it would be a slot to one day lead the Bureau. But the same qualities that had brought him into limelight also impressed President Olusegun Obasanjo, who charged him in 1999 to run the privatization program as Director General of the BPA. Malam El-Rufai distinguished himself at the NBE, showcasing a clear-headedness, tenacity, and courage that persuaded President Obasanjo to saddle him in 2003 with the difficult job of managing Abuja as the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. The impact Malam El-Rufai did not disappoint as he tackled that giant challenge. He restored Abuja to the dream of its founders, gave Nigeria its first computerized land registry, and made it possible for ordinary Nigerians, 27,000 of them, to own land in Abuja once they followed simple but clear procedures. Many more were to benefit from his supervision of the sale of government houses following the adoption of the monetization policy by the federal government. El-Rufai became known as a successful manager of difficult tasks, but he handled it all with aplomb. He initiated the process of pension reforms that battered the new contributory pension scheme, led the planning team for a new national identity mechanism, and coordinated the Bureau of Public Service Reform. During his service as FCT Minister, he invented and provided facilities for the EFCC to set up a unit in his ministry, in a firm demonstration of his commitment to transparency. After 8 years in public service, El-Rufai returned to school, completing a law degree and enrolling for a master's in public administration at the Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. Since his return to the country, he has been active as a vocal public intellectual and has maintained a popular weekly column. El-Rufai chaired the renewed committee of the CPC, and he was a signatory to the Africa APC INEC registration form that confirmed the merger of the 5 parties that fused into the APC. He was later appointed the interim Deputy National Secretary of the APC. In April 2015, Madam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai was elected Governor of Kaduna State on the platform of the APC. In that office, he has brought zeal, innovation, and results to governance. Anchored on the restoration program is the manifesto of the Kaduna APC. He is leading a team to remake governance in the state and align all priorities to the sustainable delivery of public good. He has scored many firsts. Among other unique steps, he is the first to attach portfolios while sending his cabinet nomination for confirmation, and is the first to implement the Treasury single account. He is the first governor in Nigeria, as best as I know, that has a son in a public school. Shall we please clap for him? We are about to argue this elsewhere. If 10 governors do that, public schools will begin to receive adequate attention. We congratulate you, sir, for that noble step. Under his leadership, Kaduna State has doubled its internally generated revenues, attained unprecedented levels of capital spending, and secured significant levels of foreign direct investment. In 2017, Malam El-Rufai began implementing measures to reform the public service and improve standards in the education sector by disengaging 27,780 failed primary school teachers and recruiting 25,000 new teachers to replace them. He has established the Kaduna Geographical Information Service as the new digital land registry for the state, centralized revenue collection in the new Kaduna State Internal Revenue Service through a new tax law, and placed pension management under one pension bureau. His government has completed and commissioned the 150 million liters per day water treatment plant component of the Zaria water project, and is profiting 12 water works across the state. The El-Rufai government has prioritized infrastructural development. In mid-2017, it had 443 kilometers of township roads and 16 internal roads with a distance of 14.8 kilometers at various stages of completion. There are many schools being rebuilt, while it is upgrading 255 hospitals to be equipped with tools for safer deliveries and management of infant and maternal mortality. Malam El-Rufai is a resolute champion of the equality of opportunity. He recently chaired the APC Committee on True Federalism, which has recommended the devolution of powers, including placing policing and control of mineral resources to the states. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam El-Rufai, as he delivers his lecture.
Thank you very much. Sometimes when these citations are read, one begins to wonder whether they're talking about you. But I thank you, Professor, for the compliments. Your Excellency, Deputy Governor Agboola Ajayi, representing my brother, Governor Aketi, we call him. Our chairman, distinguished Senator Dr. Bode Olajumoke, our chief host, Mrs. Jumoke Anifuoshe, Your Royal Majesty, the Olowo of Owo, Your Royal Majesty, representing the Oni of Ife, Your Royal Majesties here present, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to adopt the perfect protocol presented by Mrs. Anifuoshe. Let me begin with an apology because we came late. I don't have my own plane yet. Maybe one day Kaduna State will be as rich as rivers, and then we can have our own planes so we can take off and land on time. We hired the plane to bring us to Akure, and it arrived late. My apologies, my real sincere apologies. I know that in Ondo State, there is a habit of keeping to time, unlike some other states in Nigeria. So my apologies. Permit me to begin by expressing my profound gratitude for the honor of being invited to present this keynote address at the 2019 Colloquium of the Ajasin Foundation. It is a welcome opportunity to pay tribute to the life and service of Chief Michael Adekunle Ajasin, one of the visionaries who contributed to deliver independence for our country. His notable role in developing the Action Group's education policy in the years of regional self-government preceding 1960 stands out. In March 2016, I had the privilege to chair the commemorative birthday anniversary held in Ikene for late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, that colossus and master executor of grand visions with whom late Chief Ajasin was so closely associated in defining a progressive path for our country. The quality of human capital the Old Western region produced is a testament to the fact that in the hands of serious people, political power can produce significant and consequential social good that can last for generations. The Old Western region still leads Nigeria in education, largely due to the foundations laid by Chief Michael Ajasin and Chief Obafemi Awolowo. May their souls rest in peace. The Ajasin Foundation has asked me to present some thoughts on promoting economic development, social justice, and the rule of law as pathways to stability, peace, and prosperity in Nigeria. All the key words in this theme are interconnected, and they speak to what, in my view, should be the key governance objectives. I'll provide my perspectives on these issues broadly and then indicate how we are promoting these goals in executing our governance agenda in Kaduna State specifically. I trust that other speakers at the colloquium, particularly the distinguished professors and doctors on my right, will significantly enrich these perspectives. So let me begin with some context, ladies and gentlemen. Governments build to seek and advance peace and prosperity within the territories they govern by taking measures to promote social development and economic progress. In this regard, government's principal role is providing a framework or environment that engenders security, makes available public goods like transport infrastructure, enables market to function and thrive, and encourages individuals to compete fairly based on rules and norms in order to realize their full potentials. This pursuit of material well-being by individuals induces levels of cooperation and interaction among several actors to create wealth, generate public revenues, and upgrade standards of living. A system of rules, that is, laws, regulations, and social norms, are needed to guide individual and collective behavior. This system and its enforcement mechanism, or the rule of law, gives the actors within society, its economic systems, markets, and institutions the confidence that there are fair laws, rules, and regulations that protect the right of individuals to life, limb, liberty, and livelihoods. These laws and regulations must be grounded on the equality of all persons, while upholding property rights and providing an accessible mechanism for resolving disputes in a transparent and consistent manner. The rule of law provides the predictability that certain modes of conduct are encouraged or at least acceptable, and sets out the sanctions that are applied to punish and discourage illegal and antisocial conduct. A rules-based society pursuing economic development requires a fundamental commitment to social justice in order to guarantee a level of fairness and to give everyone, both the strong and the weak, a stake in the peace and prosperity of the society. The linkage between economic development, the rule of law, and social justice is strong. At the base, it is without much doubt, it is the rule of law that constitutes the foundation of social cohesion and human progress. Consequently, At every stage of economic development, a society must strive to be law governed and must deliberately organize itself to encourage individual initiative, promote equality of opportunity, and offer a shield for people that might otherwise be left out. As an economy advances, policy changes and market pressures are constantly creating new winners and losers. This imposes a compelling public policy objective to identify and uplift the vulnerable, fight inequality, and the feelings of alienation that it engenders, which can imperil the public good. Recent scholarship takes an inclusive view of the rule of law and its relationship to development. The United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development views the rule of law both as an independent value and a necessary instrument for promoting economic development. From this perspective, the very idea of sustainable development presupposes multiple interlinkages between economic, environmental, and social aspects of human endeavors that require effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions in achieving social justice and economic development. The Sustainable Development Agenda is an ambition that embraces the connection between social justice and economic progress, the conditions that enable development to advance in an inclusive manner. In fact, a wide range of empirical literature and practical experience have brought to light the realization that social justice cannot be separated from the broader questions of economic development and the rule of law. Global financial and economic crisis, armed conflict and militarism, dangers to public health, gender-based and other forms of violence, food insecurity, and climate change have intensified vulnerabilities that have threatened the realization of social justice. It is therefore not surprising that the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development of 1995 recognizes the urgent need to, and I quote, address profound social problems, especially poverty, unemployment, and social exclusion that affects every country. Close quotes, and sets government to task to, and I quote, address both their underlying and structural causes and their distressing consequences in order to reduce uncertainty and insecurity in the life of the people. Quotation closed. Indeed, social and economic development cannot be secured in a sustainable way without the institutionalization of the rule of law. So let me speak a bit about the concept of economic development. There are several approaches to what constitutes economic development, ranging from the narrow idea, which equates it to growth, to more expansive perspectives involving multiple factors, such as life expectancy and literacy as proxies for high standard of living. A general understanding of development is to construe it as a process in which people in a country become wealthier, healthier, better educated, happier, and with greater access to good quality housing and basic infrastructure in an environment defined by the rule of law, social stability, and peaceful coexistence. Development often manifests in higher per capita incomes, growth in domestic and international trade, higher levels of investment, preferably diversified, expansion of physical infrastructure, and enhanced levels of employment. In the last 40 years, many countries have made the transition from third world status to industrialized, export-led growth, and then to the development of robust service economies with formidable domestic consumption supported by strong banking, insurance, commerce, and shipping sectors. Sadly, though, Nigeria is not one of those countries. Therefore, promoting economic development entails sustainability of the above indicators through deliberate policy efforts by governments. The invisible hand of the market, so venerated in classical economics, has proven to be very amenable to being nudged by government to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community by creating and/or retaining jobs. This, alongside improvements in a variety of indicators such as literacy rate, life expectancy, poverty reduction rate, and growing incomes, help to advance development. Governments apply several levers to influence economic development, and I will mention a few of them. These include, number one, monetary and fiscal policies. These monetary and fiscal policies should reflect broad economic objectives, such as price stability, high employment or reduced unemployment, expanded tax base, income growth, and sustainable development. This includes regulation of financial institutions and the implementation of trade and tax policies. Number 2, policies and programs to develop human capital, especially basic education and universal health care, and to provide infrastructure and services such as highways, railways, electric power, communications, public parks, affordable housing, improved security and crime prevention. Number 3, job creation and retention programs through specific initiatives in business finance, skill development, market creation, and industrial promotion. Governments also support small business startup and development, business retention and expansion, technology transfer, workforce training, and real estate development. Number 4, governments may also act as direct economic actors, taking whole or partial stakes in specific business entities for reasons that range from jumpstarting industrialization to managing severe market failure. One striking instance of government intervention in an industry was the socialization of healthcare in Britain. After winning a landslide election in 1945, the Clement Attlee-led Labour Party decided to create the National Health Service. And Nurin Bevan, the then Minister of Health responsible for the policy, was quoted to have said that no society can legitimately call itself civilized if a sick person is denied medical aid because of lack of means. This was the basis for establishing the National Health Service. And today in the UK, if you fall ill, you just go to a health facility and you're sure to get treated without having to pay a penny. It is pertinent to note, however, that achievement of these development advances above depends on the rule of law, an effective legal system that upholds public order and security, and a set of institutions that advance the attainment of good governance, social justice, stability, peace, and development and prosperity. The rule of law in this sense must be just, fair, and equitable and efficiently enforced to promote social justice, which in turn promotes stability and the peace necessary for economic development and prosperity of the majority. So I will speak a bit more about this rule of law. The rule of law is usually thought of as a political or legal matter that ensures public order. But in the past 10 years, the rule of law has become a centerpiece of institutional alliances even in development economics. For example, with the crumbling of the Washington Consensus, economists became fascinated with examining how the institutional setting of policy making, especially rule of law, affects economic growth and development. The general argument then was if the rules of the games are messy, macroeconomic policy would not be effective in stimulating economic growth and activities. In the most basic sense, the rule of law describes the framework that protects the rights of citizens from arbitrary and abusive use of government power. At its core, the rule of law is a means of ordering society, and it defines the relationship between the citizen and the state, prescribes the system of rules and regulation and norms that infuse them, and sets out the means of adjudicating and enforcing them. Long-standing conceptions of the rule of law in development have emphasized security and property rights, but they also include values such as equality before the law, due process, just outcomes, and equal access. Some core development functions of the rule of law are increasingly being recognized as follows. Number 1, enabling economic development. Number 2, fostering citizenship and social and economic justice. Number 3, preventing, mitigating, and deterring conflict, crime, and violence. Number 4, strengthening accountability and checks on power and reducing corruption. Number 5, enhancing the fair allocation of services. And finally, number 6, protecting the environment and natural resources. Rule of law is of fundamental importance to development outcomes. It expresses and enables a society's conception of social and economic justice, and more specifically, attitudes to extreme poverty and deprivation. It frames the consensus on wealth, power, and redistribution. The rule of law in a modern legal system is accepted as a fundamental principle that is in direct correlation with legal, state, democracy, and realization of human rights and freedom. More recently, the rule of law has been viewed as an outcome of development as an enabling condition for development and a process through which other development outcomes are achieved, and as a basic principle of governance. For instance, as an outcome of development, the World Bank writes that a lack of access to justice itself is itself a central dimension of poverty. So the fact that you have no access to justice is a major dimension of poverty. Number two, as an enabling condition for development, rule of law enhances the basic social order and security required for other development activities to proceed. Number three, a process through which other development outcomes are achieved. Rule of law helps to determine which decisions are made, rules that are adopted and enforced, and how grievances and disputes are resolved. Number four, as a principle of governance or political order, rule of law ensures the regulation of public and private power. The UN Secretary General defines it as a principle of governance in which all persons, institutions, and entities, public and private, including the state itself, are accountable to laws that are publicly promulgated, equally enforced, and independently adjudicated, and which are consistent with international human rights norms and standards. It requires as well measures to ensure adherence to the principles of supremacy of law, equality before the law, accountability to the law, fairness in the application of the law, separation of powers, participation in decision making, legal certainty, avoidance of arbitrariness, and procedural and legal transparency. The foregoing discussions, ladies and gentlemen, on the link between the rule of law and economic development in development economics theory provides two main insights. First, rule of law represents a crucial instrument for achieving economic objectives. Second, since the 1990s, the rule of law has become a self-standing value and objective to be achieved within development cooperation efforts. Indeed, an important theoretical contribution to the debate on the rule of law and economic development has come from the joining of arguments about property rights and contracting to the long-standing tradition about the significance of institutional checks and balances. Now, how does all this apply to Nigeria? Because we've been talking broadly and very theoretically. Now, let's be a bit practical and apply this to our condition. We spent considerable time to establish the nexus between the component items of our theme today. It is now time to examine where we stand in Nigeria and what can be done to advance shared prosperity, equal opportunity, law, and order. Nigeria is a country with a large population of mostly poor people. And you know, our population now is about 200 million. It is projected to grow to about 450 million by the year 2050. By then, we'll be the third most populous country in the planet. But the expectation also is that unless we change our development path, a large percentage, more than 300 million of those people will be poor. So it's a huge problem. According to the World Bank Development Indicators for 2019, our key indices for 2018 were as follows. Our per capita income is $2,294, up from about $2,163 in 2010, but down from $2,507 in 2015. So our per capita income has been going down from 2015. Life expectancy of 54.36 years, up from 50.9 years in 2010. So our life expectancy is improving slightly. Mortality rate of 75.7 infants per 1,000 live births, down from 84.1 in 2010. Again, we're improving in terms of bringing down our infant mortality rates. And I want to add that, you know, Ondo State is one of the best states in terms of that measure because of your very robust healthcare system. I would like to credit my brother, Governor Mimiko, for the investments he made that enabled Ondo to move ahead, which are being sustained by the current government. It's a good thing. Nigeria's population as at 2018 was estimated at 195.8 million. In March 2019, we crossed the 200 million mark and growing at an annual rate of 2.59% per annum. Note that the GDP has not exceeded 1.9%. GDP growth has not exceeded 1.9% since we recovered from recession in 2017. This means there is a worrying asymmetry between economic growth and the rate at which our population is expanding. We are growing faster than our population, and therefore we are getting poorer every year on a per capita basis. While most Nigerians are below the age of 35, the country had a 42.7% unemployment rate among young people as at 2018. These aggregate numbers conceal regional disparities, as the social and economic indices for parts of the North are worse in many respects. These numbers, as I said, appear to be encouraging, but when you break them down across regions or across states, you see wide disparities. For instance, as I mentioned, Ondo State has one of the lowest infant and maternal mortality rates in the country, and is far, far, far ahead of my state, Kaduna, because you have more midwives, you have more people in your primary health centers, ensuring that pregnant women don't die and infants don't die before the age of 5. And so by the time you disaggregate these numbers, which the average conceals, you see that we are in serious danger. The northern part of the country is very, very well behind the southern part of the country in terms of educational attainment and healthcare coverage. And this is very, very, very dangerous for the country as a whole. And something has to be done. Therefore, it is clear that as a country, we confront severe challenges to economic development, requiring urgent actions to create better life chances for our people. The federal government designed the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan in 2017 as a mechanism to move Nigeria out of recession and to achieve structural transformation of the economy. The current economic outlooks have shown that achieving the expected transformation is challenging, with upward trending unemployment rates and a very slow growth rate. We are still growing at about 2% even this year, while our population is growing well above 2%. The fact is we cannot lament our way out of tough economic conditions. We must continue to pursue economic recovery with higher productivity and better employment levels, even as we address the urgent questions of human capital development as the sustainable basis for future growth and prosperity. This requires a national consensus on how we intend to stem widening inequality, tackle poverty, and unleash the creative energies of our people. Yet, at a moment when we should be focusing on these very serious matters, the national charter and discourse frequently distract from what is consequential. Our national discourse should focus on the best ways to build a stronger economy and uplift all our people. Progress and development don't suddenly happen to societies. Organizing a modern society is a deliberate task, beginning with a collective decision regarding what that society intends to be and the means of attaining it. That collective decision manifests in what is referred to as elite consensus, and it would include an understanding of a medley of measures required to make it happen. It may involve a set of drastic actions to signal a firm direction and some more medium to long-term measures that require patient nurturing. I will give an example. China just celebrated 70 years of its founding as a communist republic. Although the royal dynasty has been overthrown in the early part of the 20th century, the successor republic proved feeble, unable to govern well, or to defend China from the aggression of a belligerent Japan. Chairman Mao's communist forces won a long civil war and proclaimed the People's Republic of China on 1st October 1949. Mao's China got the nuclear bomb, but it stumbled from one tragedy to another. The Great Leap Forward, designed to transform China into an industrial power, failed, and the Cultural Revolution sought more chaos. The first 30 years of the new China did not deliver much, to be honest, but after Mao's death, a new leadership coalesced around Deng Xiaoping. They chose a new direction for China, grafting capitalism into the heart of a system that remained putatively, at least in name, communist. They implemented a one-child policy to control their growing population, built infrastructure, and welcomed foreign investment. They made the next 40 years consequential, catapulting China from one of the poorest countries in the world into first world status, lifting about 800 million people out of poverty and making their country the second largest economy in the world. All this happened within 30 to 40 years. By contrast, many people in Nigeria appear fixed and mired in an identity bind, seeming to believe that salvation lies in smaller and ethnically purer polities. I argue that rather than leaving our peoples more to the past, we can create a shared vision of a new future. We require an elite consensus to take the poison out of identity politics and emphasize personal qualities, including competence, application, and responsibility. We must be pragmatic in our economic and political choices, choosing what is efficient above what is popular, caring more for results than the drama of ethno-religious entrepreneurs. Now, elite consensus must include agreement on at least 5 pillars, at least 5. And the background to this is this. What we have found studying countries that have succeeded is that each country has a core of people, of leaders, the elites that agree on a basic minimum that they never go below. For instance, if you look at the United States, whether the president is Republican or Democrat, they have agreed that the United States must fight communism wherever they see it. Okay? It does not matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. The United States has a social security system and everybody is entitled to benefit from it. Of course, Trump is unusual. He is changing some of these norms. But for the past 200 years, there is some consensus around what is America and what is American way of life. The same thing with the British. No one is likely to abolish the National Health Service. There is consensus that if you live in the UK and you fall sick, you must get medical care. No one touches the public school system. So there are some things that are agreed. Now, what some of us argue is that in Nigeria, our elites never sat and agreed on what are these minimums. And this is why sometimes we go below the minimum, sometimes we rise above the minimum. This elite consensus is very, very important. And these elites, and all of us here are part of that elite. Who are the elites? They are educated, they are privileged, they are the middle class, they are the ones that don't worry what is the meal, what is the next meal. Once you have this, you qualify as part of the elites, and you should have an interest in seeing that the country works, because if it works better, you are the greatest beneficiary. We have argued that, we have elites in Nigeria that do not even know what is in their best interest, because it is not because rich people want to part with their money that you have a social security system in most of Europe and America, where the poorest person must at least get food stamps to eat. It is not because they are generous. It is because they know that if your neighbor is hungry, you will not sleep well at night. So it is better you agree to give him something. It's better you agree from your taxes to fund, to give him something, give him some food, give his child basic education, and then you'll enjoy your own wealth. But Nigerian elites have not realized that no matter how much money you have alone, if the rest of the people don't have their basic needs satisfied, you'll not enjoy your money. But we are hoping that with more conversations like this, our elites will come to realize this. So what is elite consensus? Elite consensus revolves around at least 5 pillars as they apply to Nigeria. The first is rule of law, which I've spoken about. We must agree that equality before the law is non-negotiable. Okay? The law must be blind to anyone's ethnic or religious affiliations. It must be vigorously applied. You know, it is only in Nigeria you catch a person doing something wrong and he says, it's because I'm Yoruba, it is because I'm Igbo, it's because I'm Fulani. No, it's because you're a criminal. Face the law. Okay? Rule of law encourages the adoption of common norms and fosters predictability. It dictates how government, citizens, and businesses behave and how differences are resolved and when they arise. It incentivizes good behavior and promises the law-abiding the certainty of sanctions against the lawbreaker. Nigeria is currently limited in guaranteeing the rule of law. There is a mental hurdle in some communities, the notion that it should not apply to the other or the stranger. Okay? There are not enough police officers in Nigeria on the ground to assure robust law enforcement. We have one of the lowest police to citizens ratio in the world. Congested courts and antiquated legal processes also slow down prosecutions and the application of sanctions. So we must agree on this. We must have rule of law in Nigeria. The second issue that we must agree is what I call common citizenship. The rights recognized by the Nigerian Constitution must apply wherever a citizen chooses to live. The ability of so-called indigents to a particular place trammels on the political and economic rights of the so-called settlers. This is not only a perpetual source of conflict, but a severe limiter of nation building. Citizenship should be tied to residency, not blood or cultural origins in a specified place. Because people move around. And depending on how far you go into time, everyone was a settler at some point. Anyone who lives in a place for a defined period and contributes to that place should be considered a citizen of that place. Too often in this country, individuals get blamed and sometimes suffer tragic punishment for things done by others with whom they only happen to share the same tribe or faith. You know, in my state, whenever there is a crisis, people habitually block roads, and depending on who are those that block the roads, they may just kill you because you're a Muslim or kill you because you're a Christian, depending on who are the road blockers. This was what was happening in my state for quite a long time. We've been able to do something about that. It has not happened now for 3 years. But, you know, these things happen. And it is wrong. It is completely wrong for a person to live in a place all his life and you call him a settler and he cannot enjoy all the rights that people that claim to be indigenous there enjoy. This year I nominated a lady called Fausat Ibikunle as a commissioner in Kaduna State. And it was news. But let me tell you the story of Fausat. Fausat's parents, I think, are from Kwara State, from Ofa. But they have lived in Kaduna for 60, 70 years. She was born in Kaduna town. She went to LEA Maiduguri Road and GGSS Kao in Kaduna and then Ahmadu Bello University. No one in Ofa knows her. So if you insist that she is from Kwara State and not from Kaduna State, she loses both ways. That is not right. We have to do something about this. So when I nominated her as commissioner, and she went before the State House of Assembly, what they asked her is, where were you born? They didn't ask her, what is your state of origin? And she said, I was born in Kaduna. Which street? She mentioned. And one of the members said, I know your house. And that was how she was asked to take a bow and go. And I'm very proud of our State House of Assembly for that. So, but my point here is this. Why is Fausat a commissioner in our government? She's commissioner for housing and urban development. Because Fausat studied architecture in Ahmadu Bello University and worked with the Federal Capital Development Authority before we asked her to move to run our State Urban Planning and Development Agency. She did very well as DG of Kasubda, and I thought, why not? She should be the Commissioner of Housing and Urban Development. It has nothing to do with where she came from. And I did not do it to score any points. I nominated her because she was the best person for the job, period. And that's the basis on which we should make choices in this country. The third thing that we must agree as elites is what I refer to as meritocracy. Each person should be judged by their ability, not the language they speak or how they worship. If we want the best for our country, we must insist on having at the helm of affairs the best in learning, ability, and character. Merit and competence must be the organizing principle in business and in government. And I want to add, for those that are not in politics but complain that politicians are messing up the country, it is your fault. Yes. If you feel that politicians are messing up the country, what have you done to join and change it? Every country that has made progress made that progress because their best and brightest people are in politics and public service. Go and look at the resume of all American presidents. They are all educated in Ivy League universities. Their best educated people go into politics. Go and look at prime ministers of the UK. They are all Oxford or Cambridge. Their best people go into politics. Here, our best people work for MTN, banks, and oil companies, and then we complain when the worst people go into politics. Now, 3,000 years before the Christian era, Plato said that the punishment you suffer when good people walk away from politics and government is that you are governed by the worst people. Okay? So don't complain. Join us so that we get a critical mass to change the system. So let me continue. A society would be unwise to perpetually shut out the able, the best, and the brightest, shut them out, and expect the less able to serve the public good well. The call for merit is a call for decent public education, offering every citizen the chance to be taught well and to deliver habits of thinking and doing that can serve them and society well. The best way to build a pool of competent people is by deciding to educate everyone very well. As I said, this is something that late Chief Michael Ajasin and Chief Obafemi Awolowo championed and delivered for the Old Western region. And the results are still with us. And I think we should try to do that everywhere. We've been trying to do that in Kaduna State, which I'll explain shortly when towards the end of my speech. The number 4 item that we must agree as elites is the respect for diversity. Every country, every society, every polity must devise ways to reflect in its institution the diversity of its residents. This must be done in a constructive way. Otherwise, it becomes an exercise in entrenching identity politics that is often a toxic affair. I do not believe that merit and diversity are enemies. There are good people everywhere, and a fair recruitment process will often deliver the best and the meritorious as a statement in diversity. The way the quota system has been practiced in this country has had the consequences of keeping the educational backward states that way because it is more profitable for the elite. Now, since I was in secondary school, Kaduna State is one of the states considered educationally backwards. What does that mean? It is a system of giving some free money to those states to catch up. But so long as you get free money, why should you catch up? You should just get more of it. Okay? So today Kaduna State is 12th in terms of educational rankings in Nigeria. We are ahead of many southern states. Okay? But we have kept quiet. We say we are still educationally backwards. Because, you get more money from UBEC, you get more money from TED Fund. It does not work. you create a quota system in which each state has its own cutoff marks for entry into federal government colleges or universities. Has it helped? Has it brought Zamfara State up? It hasn't. So there is something about designing a plan for diversity that often makes the problem worse. And I think the way we have practiced quota system in this country needs to be reviewed because it has not achieved the results. Because if in 40 years nothing has changed, something should be looked at. Anything that you have that does not work requires to be reviewed and updated. And there should be a debate on how to make it work. Clearly, this thing has not worked. But in politics, we find that those who oppose quota for admission into schools and employment in the public sector, and employment in the public sector consider it perfectly okay to zone elective offices. So there is a contradiction. Why are you opposed to quota system if you'll turn around and say, you know, I want turn-by-turn politics? What is the difference? We must learn to be consistent on an insistence that merit is the supreme zoning principle. Finally, the fifth item of the elite consensus is devolution of powers. Nigeria is an overly centralized state. It is only called a federal republic in name. Its unitary substance belies its official name. The federal government is too large for its own good and the good of the nation. It does too much and very little well due to its humongous size. It gulps 52% of federation earnings, but is stretched beyond its core mandate of security and defense, fiscal and monetary policy, national infrastructure, and foreign affairs. These are the core areas that federal government should focus on. But none of them is being done very well because the federal government is truly overstretched. Even after taking 52% sorry, I have a watch that rings. Apologies. Okay. Its centralized police force cannot recruit or maintain enough police officers to enforce state presence across the country. Its military forces appear stretched by a host of internal security challenges. The Nigerian army is currently deployed, last time we checked, in 34 states out of 36 in Nigeria, carrying out duties that should be legitimately be carried out by the police, because the police does not have the footprint to do it and is too weak, and the military is now engaged in internal security duties, and that has certain consequences on us as a country. It appears that the federal government is unable to create or sustain a national intelligence apparatus that is fit for purpose. Because if we had a robust national intelligence apparatus, many of the crimes that we see happening would have been nipped in the bud. But again, there are challenges there. Now, these 5 areas, devolution, diversity, meritocracy, common citizenship, and rule of law are issues that we must, as leaders of the country at every level, discuss and agree. Switch off my phone, because it's the phone that is ringing. So this elite consensus I want to end is very, very important. We don't need a national conference to discuss all the 10 or 15 issues that they put. What we do need is a national conversation around these 5 items. That's all we need. And this concerns everyone. It is not a matter of north or south, east or west. It's not a matter of urban versus rural. It's not a matter of small state, big state, or federal government. It concerns everyone. If we're able to agree on many of these issues, we will be just fine. Many of these issues that impact directly on citizens are best handled at state and local government level. State governments practically maintain the police forces stationed in their jurisdictions and pay for internal security operations mounted by the military. Primary health care, basic education, and housing are all state-level functions. It is very common to blame the federal government for everything or expect a borehole in your community should be built by President Buhari. but it is wrong. Because the Constitution is very clear as to what are federal functions and state level functions. And most of the problems that our citizens face day to day are problems that can be solved by state governments and local governments. But the federal government often gets blamed. And I think we should be very clear about this. The federal government can help itself by retrenching its overbearing presence and concentrate on security, defense, and foreign relations. It should decentralize the police and allow states that are willing to run and maintain their own state police services, subject to agreed rules. Devolution of powers redirects the gaze of the citizen towards state level, where he can demand public service and expect to pay his taxes. Now, I have looked at Nigeria in general, and I have tried to point out where I think we need to have a national conversation to move forward as a country. Now I'll give the example of what we've tried to do in Kaduna State. Because even within these constraints, there is a lot that we can do, and there is a lot that we must do since we're elected to serve the people. And that's what we've tried to do in Kaduna State in the last 4 to 5 years. Having had the privilege of leading a state for 4 years, I think it is ripe to share how we tried in Kaduna State to, within the limited powers available to a subnational, expand economic opportunity, rule of law, and social justice in Kaduna State. Permit me, therefore, to share our experience. Now, from our first day in office, we are clear-headed about our realities and constraints. Because if you don't face your reality, if you are in denial, you will not solve your problems. With a population of about 10 million people, and over 80% of this below the age of 35, we knew that our main governance challenge and opportunity, it's a challenge, it's also an opportunity, was creating jobs to lift our young people out of poverty. I don't believe that there is any poverty alleviation program that can lead to sustainable results that does not include job creation. When you give a person a job, a decent paying job, he's immediately lifted out of poverty. Handouts and all these empowerment programs are just politically motivated. They are not meant to lift people out of poverty. So we also knew that oil prices were no longer going to be anywhere near $100 a barrel. And finally, we knew we had inherited a Kaduna State that was highly indebted, ethno-religiously divided, with an overbloated workforce, demoralized public service, compounded by a massive infrastructure and skills deficit. We inherited 4,256 primary schools. 90% of them were in dilapidated state. Half of our pupils, we inherited about 1.1 million pupils in primary schools. Half of them were sitting on floors to be taught. And by the time we tested the teachers, which was referred to in the citation, 2/3 of all the teachers failed a primary 4 level exam. And we had to sack them. Okay? So this is what we inherited. This was the reality of 16 years of PDP rule. But we didn't bother complaining about this or that. This was the problem. It's what we inherited. It's what we have voted to resolve. We should just face it and solve it. There was no time to blame anyone. It was a waste of time. This is the problem. This is what we learned in our first day in office. So how do we navigate these challenges and deliver on economic development, social justice, and promotion of the rule of law in our state? Our team brainstormed on that, and we realized that first we must be selective and focus about our governance, economic and social policy making and implementation. We can't do everything. We can't solve every problem. I mean, if you have 4,256 primary schools and about 3,900 of them were dilapidated, you obviously cannot fix all of them even in 8 years. But you have to start. You have to just be selective. What can we do within the limits of your resources, both human and material? So we persuaded ourselves that we had to be selective. We can't do everything. Okay? Because people try to do everything, they end up doing nothing very well. Okay? So being selective was one key decision. And many people don't think about this, but it is important. We must be selective and focused about our governance. We also, because we chose to be selective, we focused on creating islands of excellence. We know that we can't make the entire state work. I mean, if the government has not been building roads for 10 years, you cannot build all the roads in 4 years or 8. So you have to pick a few areas and make them perfect. Why? Because you want to attract businesses to invest. That's the only way you can create jobs. Businesses will only come when you have the roads, the electricity, water in a particular place. You don't have to have it all over the state. But get a few areas where these things work as well as they work in Lagos. Because within states, we knew we were going to compete with other states to attract industries. And we do not have the advantage of Lagos, who is on the coast and already has an industrial base. If we are to attract industries inland, we must look at our constraints and create islands of excellence. We must remove the disadvantage we have over Lagos, for instance. This is one of the reasons why we pursued and got an inland dry port built in Kaduna. So from anywhere in the world, you can ship goods directly to Kaduna without the container being open. That way, we've reduced the disadvantage we have against Lagos. And now this is an island of excellence. By putting that inland dry port, we equated ourselves with Lagos as part of access to the sea, as far as access to the sea is concerned. And so that's what we tried to do. We tried to look at areas where we can create zones of excellence, where we can then attract businesses to come. This was the only way we can have sound long-term planning side by side with timely implementation in the short and medium term. We then produced a 5-year state development plan. Nigeria used to plan. Then we stopped in the mid-80s. Structural Adjustment Program, IMF, World Bank told us stop planning. And we stopped. We believed them. But the countries that have made progress, the Chinas, Japans, Indias, Singapores of this world, all engage in long-term planning. So we said we will have a 5-year plan for Kaduna State. We produce a 5-year plan. We produce an infrastructure master plan from now till the year 2050. We also produce a state industrialization plan. Now from these plans, because planning is easy, implementation is where the problem is. We prepared sector implementation plans to guide execution of the various plans by each ministry, department, and agency. But when you have a plan to implement, what do you need to get it implemented? You need people, quality people. So we decided and brought only accomplished and competent people from every part of the country into our government. We didn't limit ourselves to people from Kaduna State. Anyone that we can, whether he's from Ondo State or anywhere, anyone that can do a job very well that we can find, we said you are welcome to Kaduna. So we had a solid team. Because that's the only way you can implement the plan. These are the basic foundation on which everything we did was built. I will now present some of our experiences in the last 4 years. Let me start from August 2019 and walk back. In August 2019, Kaduna State announced that we will begin to pay the new national minimum wage and the consequential adjustment by the 1st of September 2019. We are the first and so far the only government to have done so. Now, We were able to do so because we had long reviewed the pay schemes and pay levels in the state before the federal government commenced minimum wage negotiations with the unions. We thought that pay levels in our public service were too low and considered a pay rise a central feature of our public service renewal and revitalization program, which we launched in 2016. So we've been studying this since 2016. That's why we could do it. November 2019, this month, represents the third month that public servants in Kaduna State are earning their enhanced wages. And we've already paid our salaries for this month. This is part of the fruits of the strategic plans and policy reforms we initiated from 2015 when we assumed responsibility for leading the state. We announced our intention to reorient the priorities of government and put the needs of ordinary people at the core. We sought to improve the efficiency of government, to cut waste and confront fraud, and improve the levels of internally generated revenue. To advance these goals, we took some steps, very difficult steps, but we took them. We reduced the number of ministries in the state from 19 to 14. Where our predecessor government appointed 24-hour commissioners, we have only 14. We undertook verification of employee and pensioner payrolls. We uncovered over 3,000 ghost workers and pensioners and were able to shrink the payroll. We enacted a contributory pension law effective 1st January 2017, where we merged the erstwhile pension agencies managing state and local government pensions separately into one pensions bureau. We enacted a tax codification and consolidation law that lists all the taxes and levies payable in Kaduna State in one document, and we created the Kaduna Internal Revenue Service as the sole collector of all government revenues. Only one agency collected all revenues, and we also criminalized cash collections. Anyone that collects government revenue in cash goes to prison for 7 years. We have raised, by doing this, just by taking the centralizing collection, criminalizing cash collection, we have raised our internally generated revenue from 13 billion in 2015 to 30 billion in 2018 without increasing any tax rates. We didn't introduce any new taxes or raise tax rates. This year, 2019, we're on track to exceed 36 billion. We will be nearing 40 billion by the grace of God. We also took a decision in 2015 over a period of 6 weeks to implement the Treasury single account. We mopped out about 25 billion of public funds scattered in 470 accounts into one account. TSA was crucial to the government's ability to impose discipline on public finances. We abolished the Ministry of Lands and replaced it with the Kaduna Geographic Information Service, which is building a digital land registry for the state. We have taken the maintenance of public facilities away from the Ministry of Works and created the Kaduna Facilities Management Agency and tasked them with that function. We created a roads construction agency called CADRA and vested executive responsibility of construction and maintenance of all the roads, state roads in it. Over time, our hope is that the Ministry of Public Works and Infrastructure will cede all responsibilities to CADRA and focus on policy and regulatory oversight. We enacted a mortgage foreclosure law to enable Kaduna residents to borrow, to build or purchase homes at about 9% interest, payable over 15 years. And to do that, we initiated a partnership with Sterling Bank to subsidize the interest component while the bank bears the credit risk. We have concluded similar arrangements with Nigerian Mortgage Finance Corporation and Federal Mortgage Finance, enabling us to have, today we have 5 billion naira available to anyone that lives in Kaduna State to borrow at 9%, pay over 15 years to build a house or buy a house. We are expanding this from 5 billion, because 5 billion is just a start. It's nothing, really. If people really want to buy homes, 5 billion, we need 50 billion every year. We are working with other financial institutions to expand this. We have passed a new local government administration law, and we conducted local government elections using electronic voting, the first in Nigeria. We also looked at the local governments and found that they are over-bloated in terms of their payroll, so we prescribe maximum establishments for the local government so that they do not spend all their resources on personnel costs. That is why we also reduce the number of district heads. We touched our KBACs a little bit. We reduced their number of district heads from 390 to 77. We've conducted local government elections in which my colleagues' governors told me that I'm stupid, but that's what happened. APC lost chairmanship and councilorships in several local governments because we insisted that the elections had to be free, fair, and credible. We did not care if we lost some. Now, this is strange in Nigeria, and I said, many of my colleagues said, many of the governors spoke to me and said, you are a fool, just write the results and win everything. I said, well, I can't do that. Why? Because if I do that, I will not sleep well at night. It's simple. That's how God made me, And all our local governments are now viable compared to 2015, when 8 out of 23 needed supplements every month just to pay salaries. Now all of them are viable, and the poorest local government in Kaduna State, walks away with at least 50 million naira every month after they pay salaries. Because we trimmed their overhead, we trimmed their personnel, we cut out all the waste and, impose on them how many people they can employ. And we centralized the employment of all local government staff in the Local Government Service Board. Only the Local Government Service Board can employ anyone from grade level 1 to 17. We don't allow anyone, because if you allow them, they will fill the place with their family members and leave the problem for the next chairman. So this is what we are doing. And the Kaduna State Health Supplies Management Agency is pioneering supply chain transformation in the public sector. We've reduced, because of this supply chain reforms, we've reduced the cost of drugs in public health facilities by 60% and increased availability to over 80% due to the supply chain innovations. We've aligned our fiscal and calendar years since 2016. Our budget starts without fail on the 1st of January in the last 4 years. And indeed, this year, our State House of Assembly has already passed the 2020 budget, which we hope to sign into law on Monday, 2nd of December, by the grace of God. Now, we took all these measures to strengthen governance and enable us focus on human capital development and promotion of equal opportunity. We have been resolute in our reforms of the education and healthcare sectors. When we found that many primary school teachers were not fit for the role, we replaced them because of our firm belief that the children of the poor are entitled to decent education. Education to us is a ladder for social mobility. Many of us have climbed it using public school education as our footstool. We cannot shirk our duty to give unto others that which far-sighted leaders like Chief Ajasin obliged us for free. My young son, as explained, is enrolled in a public school, just as it used to be when we as primary school children rubbed shoulders with the offspring of ministers and other leaders. Access to a decent public education and healthcare systems cannot be negotiated if we want a peaceful and progressive country. If all the rich people take care of themselves, as I said, the poor will not let you sleep, they will not let you enjoy. We must take care of all of us, not just a few rich ones. We are currently implementing urban renewal programs in our major cities to improve urban infrastructure, transport connection, and options for work and pleasure. This is key to maintaining our standing as the #1 state to do business in the country. our government is giving opportunities to women and young people. Again, because we believe that diversity helps everyone. To address our security challenges, we have created a dedicated Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs, while vigorously supporting the Federal Security Agency with the necessary logistics to do their difficult job of keeping our people safe. So, all these things that I explained to you, we did in our first term of office. And we were warned that, you cannot touch primary school teachers. If you do, you will lose re-election. We said we will touch them. We are told that you cannot touch traditional rulers. If you do, you will lose re-election. We said we will do what is right. We are told that you cannot reduce the size of public service. You cannot, you have to keep them whether you need them or not, whether you can pay them or not. We said we will only keep those that we can afford and those that we need. And we got rid of many. We got rid of over 4,000 local government staff and about 5,000 state government staff that we didn't need. Okay? So by the time we went for the election, there were coalitions against us. But we won. We won. We won because I believe that those that actually vote, not those that make noise, and then they don't go out on election day, because most big men don't vote, understood that we were trying to work for the vast majority of our people. So our election has confounded those who think that a government must practice policy or reform timidity if it intends to secure a second term. Our view is that if something is right, then it must be right to do it in your first term of office, rather than wait until when you think you are free of electoral consequences. We have also shattered the myth that a government must minister to an entitled elite if it intends to stay in office. One of the things we found when we took charge in Kaduna State was that there were some important people that got regular payments from the state security vote. We said, why are these people being paid? They said, this, if you want to govern in peace, this is the peace vote. If you want to govern in peace, pay them so that they keep quiet. I said, stop it, let them talk. And we stopped. Of course, they talked, they abused me. But they will never come out and say the reason why they are abusing us is because we are not paying them. They will find other reasons, ethnic, religious, or they will criticize any policy we come up with. But they never admit. And we never made it public that, these guys were collecting X million a month. That's why they are abusing us. Now, we just left it. After 4 years, they have become exhausted. Sorry. This thing is making me suffer today. So, for us, our election confirmed that direct connections, communication, and engagement with the people that you govern are worthwhile investments. And that ordinary people can figure out who is standing for them. You just need to explain. And what we have done in the last 4 years is that every month I go on a 2-hour radio program in which I explain policies in the first hour. And then in the second hour, people call to ask me any questions. Some call to insult me, some call to abuse me, but that's okay. But many call to ask questions or report incidences where they think things are going wrong. And it has been very beneficial. Because we found that when you explain government policies in simple language to ordinary people, they get it and they support you. But more than that, they pray for you. And the prayers of ordinary people, as our holy fathers will confirm, are automatically accepted by the Almighty God. And we benefited from that. I have taken a lot of your time. ladies and gentlemen. You've been very patient, and at this point, I will like to thank the foundation for inviting me, and like to add that the Kaduna State government will make a donation to the foundation so that it continues its good work. But at this point, I must give way to hear the views of my colleagues that are better educated and better prepared than me. Because I've been to many schools, but I'm yet to get my PhD. I'm still working on my PhD. I'm a PhD student at the University of Maastricht, and in my second year. So one day I will be like them when I grow up. But for now, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share my views as well as experiences in Kaduna State. Thank you all, and may God bless you.
Can we put our hands together for His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. Thank you, sir.
Your supporters.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Tunji Abayomi, he don't do. Just a minute. Malam Nazir started his address at 13:05, 5 minutes after 1, and ended 2:40 p.m. And the discussants, I'm sure, will take note when they are talking to us. Only ignore those things that he had mentioned and emphasize on new things that we can derive. While Mr. Nasir was ending his lecture, he made mention of the need to support the foundation. I had whispered to the prof and Mrs. Anifu that there's no such item on the agenda, order of events. And so it's like the minds were working, Malam. And we quickly did one, because this foundation must not die. It must not die. And so whatever you feel like chipping to support the foundation, we would distribute around, maybe for those on the high table here. Mr. Deputy Governor, if you take one and give to...
I learned that you read computer science, so I'm not surprised. Because one of those things you have been able to do, even though you didn't mention it specifically, you used IT a lot. IT was the basis of what some of the things that you were able to do. And I also like to congratulate the federal government by renaming Ministry of Communication to the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. No country can develop without digital economy today. It is not possible. So I'm going to say, most of the things I'm going to talk about will be in respect of digital economy and as well in respect of our youth. The governor said 80% of the population of Kaduna are below 35 years old. And I'm sure that when he became governor, most of them were unemployed. And in Nigeria, I believe 60% of Nigerian population were below the age of 35, and most of them are also unemployed. And one of the first things the governor did was to create jobs. One of the things, the easiest way of creating jobs today is by creating jobs using IT. It's very, very easy to create jobs when you use IT. Most of our children have this in their hands. Some of them use it to do what? Yahoo Yahoo. But there are so many things that this small phone can do to create jobs for them. Instead of becoming Yahoo Yahoo boys, they can begin to create jobs for themselves and even employ people. We know something that we call mobile application development. Our children, if we train them very well, and Mr. Governor, sir, those are some of the things I will employ our governors to do. Create what we call IT hubs in all of our states. IT hubs where these children are trained and they can use IT to create jobs for themselves, and apart from creating jobs for themselves, they can also employ other people along. And most of them may not need more than this, or maybe it's one laptop and software. There's a place now in Yabate, they call it Yabacom. The last time Zuckerberg came to Nigeria, he didn't come to see Governor Rufai. He went to Yabacom. And what did he do? He picked some of our bright young boys and took them to America. Those people are supposed to be creating work for us because they have the skill. They are now back in the US. Unfortunately, if you look at India, India has made a lot of money from what, sir? From software. And what you need, and Mr. Governor, sir, probably you need to create a pool of Kaduna students who are very good in software, and you train them very well, and they begin to write very good software, and we are going to begin to make money. Software writing, and it does not need anything. What do you need to write good software? Your head. And most of our children, under 35 years below, are very, very bright, and they can create wealth for us only to write software for people. Let us also begin to train our women. Those doing time, the Adure and Co. The bags, the shoes in Kaduna, put them on the website so that people can buy them directly on websites and they will make foreign exchange. I'm not talking about diversification of Nigeria economy. To tell you the truth, I tell most of my friends, I say I'm waiting and praying for the time that the one barrel of oil will become $10 per barrel, so that we begin to think very well on how to have economic development. I am an IT person, and I know that one way of creating work and one way of sustaining the economy is through information technology. And he spoke about a lot of other things. Mr. Governor, sir, create a smart city in Kaduna. And I'm sure you know exactly what a smart city is. When you create a smart city in Kaduna, many people will go to that smart city, they will not go to Lagos. No, they go to Abuja. Because in a smart city, you get everything that you need in the smart city. So my goal today is to converse to all the governors and all the people who have worked in Nigeria to begin to use IT to develop this nation. Our children are very bright, and it doesn't cost much. A lot of people tell us a lot of lies. That is not true. I'm not going to ask Nigeria to start assembling hardware because it's a lot of capital outlay. But software, the capital outlay is very, very small. What you need, a computer system, or even this phone, your pen, your biro, and the software, and you begin to make a lot of money. I'm sorry to say, when I was a student in Israel, I lived very well. Not because I was carrying Aristotle like the children come today, because I was writing codes for other students to solve their problem. And writing codes to solve other people's problem does not require much money. I've never borrowed any money in my life, and I've built houses, and I've almost built brand new cars. Because of what? Because of what I have, my IT skill. So we must begin to use our IT skills in Nigeria like the Indians did. The Indians went further. to begin to use IT skill in medicine. Today, all of us, when we are sick, where do we go to? We go to India. Things that we can do here in Nigeria, we do what? Capital flight. We go to India. Most of our women, when they are on maternity leave, sometimes they don't get paid. With IT, they can still continue to work from home and get full pay. Even the old people that can no longer move around, they can still be carefully employed using what? IT workforce. So what I'm going to preach today is our government must begin to use IT, leverage on IT and IT and IT and IT and IT. People will tell me, without electricity, you cannot do IT. We have a lot of sunshine, and I know a lot of states in the north, they are not using what? The solar system. We have a lot of sunshine in Nigeria, so that we can begin to develop. And I'm going to say, no nation today will develop without IT. And unfortunately, we only pay lip service to IT in Nigeria. And I'm sorry to say this, government. Probably you are no longer paying lip service. But most of the time, we pay lip service to IT. By the time we begin to think about what IT can do for us, and our children who are very bright, all these things we are talking about, economic development. Even when it comes to security, what can make you more secure than IT? Surveillances all over the place. Cameras here, there, cameras there. All your movements, people will not tell you you are no longer safe. That is what is going to keep you safe. Because when you have CCTVs all over these places, if Nigeria is very, very, very serious about Boko Haram, IT alone will capture all those Boko Haram wherever they hide them. And that is the truth of the matter. Because when you have cameras all over everywhere, CCTV, you look at the footage, you will know who is who. When they say they have security in America, they have security elsewhere. What do you think the security depends on? Their security depends on IT. No more, no less. Their health system depends on IT. Their educational system depends on IT. Today, IT is the panacea to all of these problems and all of these things we are talking about. If today we have surveillance here, and somebody picks somebody else's pocket, all you need to do is not to do what? Go to the what? The footage. You will see the person while you're speaking your pocket, and you can easily tell about that person. If Nigerian government is serious today, Nigerian government can use IT to do what? To conquer Boko Haram. If they are very, very serious about it. I also learned that Boko Haram has become a big trade. I'm sorry to say, within the military. It's $1 billion trade now, which they don't want to end. But if today they want it to end, they will end it with IT. The Sambisa forest. You don't need to go to Sambisa forest before you know what is happening in Sambisa forest, which is use proper IT equipment. So my own today, because we were given to tell you this, that every one of us here must be an apostle of information technology to solve some of these problems. Every school in Nigeria, starting from primary school, they must have what we call IT education. When they have IT education, we are going to have a group of people later in life who will make sure that nobody suffers. I keep telling my computer science students, when they come and say they don't have any work, I said, then you are not properly in school. Because you can employ yourself. Because there are so many people who need their problem to be solved for them. Even ordinary typing letters for people. I don't know the last time I went to the post office. I said when I'm going to post the book. And everybody, what do we do now? We do email. So I didn't have to go to the post office. Very soon, jobs will change. And I also like what the governor said. Our civil service, we need to reduce the workforce. We don't need all those people in the civil service anymore. We can retrain them. I'm not saying that they will lose job. We can retrain them to do other things. When you go to the ministry, most of the time we find people talking. What are they doing? I don't know. I'm sorry to say. The job of 5 people, 1 person can do it and more efficiently, and there will be progress in this country. We need to retrain people. We need to begin to use IT to the maximum, and we need to begin to use IT to create wealth for ourselves. I have a lot of things to say with the job creation for IT. There are so many things. E-commerce. I have a girl in my house now. She does, what do you know? Okay. Anyway, my own. Please take it. Let us begin to use IT to do what? To develop. Let us begin to use IT for security. And when we have wealth and security, there shall be what? There shall be peace. Thank you.
Dr. Olufemi Adu.
Yes, sir. Let me just start on existing protocols. And let me start by saying that people suffer ill health not from what they are eating, but from what is eating them. I want to say this. When something is eating you, there is no stability. When something is eating you within, there is no peace. Talk less of prosperity. In biology, we call it homeostatics. That means something is wrong with your system. The body will do everything possible outside of the body to make sure that everything is okay. In chemistry, we call it Le Chatter's principle. If a system is in equilibrium, an external factor is added, it will shift so as to neutralize it. Let me say this again. When you take in any food that has little or no protein, has little or no carbohydrate, it has little or no mineral, water, or vitamin, there is likely not to be stability within you. There is likely not to be social justice inside of you. And you don't have prosperity inside of you. Let's take Nigeria as the body that doesn't have enough protein. Nigeria doesn't have enough carbohydrate. So what we are talking, let us now put this carbohydrate to be economic development. Let's take protein to be social justice. And let's take rule of law to be vitamin. When these things are not enough, when they are not there, there is no way you will have stability. There is no way you will have peace. And there is no way you will have prosperity. Then the question is, who is responsible for all this? It's a very big question. And everyone is responsible. The government, the populace, everybody is responsible for instability as far as I know. 4 days ago, I was on Obaile Road. A construction company came. They wanted to do the road, construct the road. And the boys, area boys came and said they will not allow them to do that until they pay 2 million. For what? Is it the government again? And most of the time we leave everything to the government. But we are more away and far away from little things we are supposed to do. Talking about social justice. Peter Tosh said, everyone is crying for peace, but nobody is crying for justice. He said, I don't want peace. I need equal right and justice. Listen to me. We have a country that is our own. Economic development, social justice, rule of law. They are pathway to stability. They are pathway to peace. They are pathway to prosperity. When these things are not there, then we are likely to have a problem. What is economic development? And how are we going about doing all these things we have on ground? It is not me. It is not you, but we all need to do something about it. Economic development has to do with the well-being and quality of life of a nation, of a region, and of a local community. And we need to improve such. But how do you take this when we are talking about economic development? When we are walking on a road that is not roadworthy, and we are paying roadworthiness. Social justice, quota system. Some people part of the nation, they just need 2 marks to get to the federal government schools. Where you have a son from this part of the state who scored 262 but cannot be admitted for the same course. Rule of law. These are when rules are obeyed by everyone. But listen to me, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than the other. That is the country we find ourselves. Listen to me, for us to promote economic development, for us to have social justice and rule of law, to promote stability, peace and prosperity, we all must do everything possible and make things work for ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Our own Honorable Engineer Adeyemi.
Thank you, sir, and permit me to equally stand on all existing protocols. Governor El-Rufai, I'm not disappointed at all because you forgot to even record one of your first. That's your female deputy governor, for which you are eternally grateful from that stock. I've been to your state over and over, so what you are saying is not new to me, and I know your role, even in the mineral sector in Nigeria. Nigeria is a country that is so endowed. And when you read out the statistics, it's so painful because we are not where we are supposed to be. We are like a rich nation with all the resources. Nigeria is so blessed. Look at Nigeria, for instance. You don't have any challenges. At times I say, if what happens in America happens in a season in Nigeria, we are all finished. You look at Houston, you look at California, flood here, and yet, when you go the next season, it's as if nothing ever happened. So what's the situation with Nigeria? Last year alone, the first 7 months of last year, Nigeria earned 26 billion US dollars. What happened to those money? You find them in mansions. You find them in houses we don't need. You find them in material things you don't need. You find them in streets, Bishop Streets in London, Bishop Streets in South Africa. That's where you find Nigerians littering those places with things we don't need. Our materialistic instincts goes beyond understanding, and that is why we have what we are discussing today. I want to commend and may the souls of the likes of Ajasin continue to rest in peace. I just can't shun this meeting. That was why I had to fly down, because some of us know what they did. What legacy did they leave? They left responsible children. Children you can be proud of, not dollars, not pounds, and that is what matters most in life. But these days, the kind of leaders we have is the issue. Nigeria is still the same. The oil is still coming from the ground. We still have the oil. We still even have resources, bitumen. We have everything there untapped. But what happens? Because people are filling their pockets out of ignorance with what they don't need. And then their children become miscreants. You've said it all, so I don't have to repeat over and over. But one thing I just want to stress in this meeting is the nexus between economic development and injustice. Today, we can't even travel on the roads. You have your big cars. You can't take it home because kidnappers will attack you. You have graduates you keep on training. Graduates that are IT savvy. Graduates who can connect, who can monitor you even without you knowing. And you think you are safe? Then you must be a joker. Because why? You train these children and they're out. They labor to go through university and they come out jobless. You put your own children who don't even have that qualification in Ivy League jobs. CBN, NCC, and those children are roaming the streets. Are we fair to them? We are not just. We have triggered something in them, which will continue to happen until we do it. If you read out the population of Nigeria is put at about 200 million, of which about 49% are youths. These 49% that are youths, the unemployment is rising. You tell them to go and do something, to go and create something. What would they create without energy? How would they compete? How would they compete? One thing is for you to manufacture something. I seated here, my daughter does beautiful bags that she took to Harrods, and Harrods was excited to have it. But how much of it can she produce? Can she meet the order? No, she can't. Where are the issue? Where is the resources? Where do you get the capital? You want to go to the bank, because I'm just talking practically. You want to get to the bank comes up with all manner of things you have to produce. Even there for you want to use intellectual capacity. Sir, Governor El-Rufai, because I know they listen and they respect you in this country. I'm an engineer of 38 years. It is wrong of this country to say you are doing procurement. procurement, you want to bid for a project, young people who don't have anything, they have the ability, they might get some capital from that system, and you bring up all manner of irrelevancies, and you say your turnover must be 2 billion naira. That I call recolonization. Anybody who wears the white, you understand? Because you carry a white skin. Because you carry a white skin. I schooled in England. Because you carry a white skin, you get automatic job. You get automatic access to a minister's office. And your own people who have first class are treated as nobody. You can't even float your own company and be successful. You understand? These are things that are causing the unrest. These are things that are causing the instability. You understand? You can't even travel easily. Look at even transportation. To travel from Akure to this place, less than 1 hour is 41,000 naira. To go back is another 41,000 naira. Hotels are how much? So where do you have the young graduates? The 38% population, how can they be gainfully employed? So you see, we have to be realistic. We must not look at capital accumulation to think that is the way to, other countries tried it and they diversified. They find out that it wasn't working. So we must stop that. We must start looking at the youth, because youths are the strength of any nation. The moment you continue to sideline these people, you cannot sleep in your houses. Thank you.
The chairman of this occasion, our father, the most distinguished and well-respected leader, Dr. Bodiola Jumoke. The keynote speaker, our leader, very vibrant and articulate governor we have in Nigeria. So some of us that usually attend meetings with him, so we know that you propound theories that have never been existing before, but you can be sure that it will come out in fly colors. Our leader, the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasiru El-Rufai, I pay my respect, sir. Kabiyesi, the Olowo of Owo. Kabiyesi, I pay my respect. The Kabiyesi representing the Ooni of Ife. Please, my royal greetings to the Kabiyesi. The family of our late father, the children of our late father, let me use my mommy as point of contact to all of you. On behalf of the governor of Ondo State, we want to congratulate the family of Pa late Ajasin. We are happy to also welcome the discussant, Professor Adenike Osofisan, Dr. Adolu Fumi, thank you for your brilliant advice. Our sister, when she introduced herself, she just says as an engineer, but I know you're also a lawyer. Honorable Engineer Febi Adeyemi, sister, thank you for always come back home to play your role. The governor of Ondo State, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Odunayo Akeredolu, would have loved to be here today, not just because he's a governor of Ondo State, but to also show respect that all of us, what we know most to do in Yoruba is to always celebrate our elders. It's a culture that nobody should compromise, and it's already embedded in all of us. But he has to travel abroad for a family program, which I'm sure many of us here is fully aware. He has asked me to represent the state and to monitor this event carefully. And my mother is here. She will testify to this, that since yesterday we have been interacting how this program will be smoothly handled. Early this morning we spoke, And because I cannot just directly call my boss, I have to also call with the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State to monitor your movements, sir, before I was able to get in touch with your chief details, just to make sure that everything is well in order. We want to, on behalf of Ondo State Government, thank you, sir, for spending time to be here. I know as a government officers, you must have probably abandoned so many state official engagements to come and honor this program. We thank you and we appreciate you, sir. You don't probably know what the stuff, sir, that you made up in Nigeria. With due respect to a lot of northern elites, I singled three of you out in the northern elites. I'm sorry to say this, I have to mention names. Your humble self, sir, the present Emir of Kano. In fact, the day that I heard that he was going to be Emir of Kano, I said, they don't mean well for this country. But when, because of the royal blood in him, he has to obey that call. And also, the radical, the former chairman of EFCC, I also have respect for the three of you from the north. And we pray that one of these days, one of you will be president of Nigeria, so that we can have a better change. I'm not saying what we have now is not good, but we believe that by the time we have younger generation, not younger generation, somebody of my stature too. I'm sorry, sir. We have listened to Malam El-Rufai, and I've just asking that, please, Oga, can you avail me this the topic you deliver here? And he said, no, give me your email address, I'll give it to him. So if you also need it, please get in touch with me. I will also send it to all of you. Yes, so we definitely get to all of us, sir. Yes, I thank you so much, sir. All of us are listening to you carefully, particularly when you single out the elite consensus. Carefully, all of us will listen to it. And I said, you normally do uncommon things, sir. People will be scared that, oh, this man going to win. Because I remember one of these governors forum meeting, all of us will engage you. Why do you choose Muslim to be deputy governor? Your answer is that you want to solve the crisis in Kaduna State. Because I have some friends there. My father was there before. This Christian and Muslim in Kaduna is usually a problem. But we say, well, you have looked at it carefully. And the only way to do is to break this hegemony of this is Christian and Muslim. Honestly, it's far, far better than now. Everywhere is peaceful, and I want to commend you for that. I thank you for what you are doing, sir. For the rule of law, no any other way to it. The difference between Nigeria and any other country is that if you travel abroad, all of us will obey their laws there. But we'll come back home here, we say, yes, I'm the governor, I'm the deputy governor, we don't do it. So if you can just strictly adhere to all this, I'm sure the idea of common citizenship and every other thing, sir, we generally follow. We thank you for that. And for us in those states, Madam, I want to thank you, Professor. The advice of ICT Hub, yes, God has given us everything we needed in this country to survive. To some of us who came from Riverine, have traveled far, far abroad, far, far. God created us in that environment, and He has also created how we survive very well there. So the issue of whether we have oil or not, bitumen, is not a cost to us. It should be an advantage by using what is also here to complement everything, sir. And I'm sure I quite agree with you that very soon, in the next few years, the era of selling newspaper on the street may merely be thing of the past. It's almost gone. Thank you, sir. It's almost gone. What we have is what God has given to all of us, sir. I thank you for that brilliant. But I must also tell you that in Ondo State, we already established 3 ICT hubs. One in each of the 3 central districts. The one in Akure here is in the Futa. The one in Ondo South is also State. And the one in the north is in the Adekunle Ajasin University. So we are also trying to blend with the existing codes. So I must also let you know that in doing this, the federal government, all of us followed recently the debate about this hate speech. How are we going to enact a law to regulate it? It's something that very soon there is going to be a balance. When something is just introduced to Nigeria, people take it in a modern form. But I know very soon there will be a regulatory body and enacted law that will correct and regulate the speech and the use of ITC that will not really give anybody chance to even go into Yahoo Yahoo. These boys are doing now. Once again, I want to thank you, but I must briefly speak on the legacy and the virtues of our late father, the former governor of the old Ondo State, comprises of Ekiti and Ondo. Baba lived a fulfilled life when he was alive, and when he left, I must also tell you that no politician in Ondo State will want to campaign that will not use Baba's name. Yes, to some of us that will say campaign in future, everybody here, the first thing they will use is Baba Ajasin's legacy. I thank God, and I want to also congratulate the Olawo for producing a son like Baba Ajasin. His name has become a name that can never go like that in Ondo State. You can't one day in Ondo State do any government program without referring to Pa Adekunle Ajasin. And I must also say this, when Auntie Febi want to wrap up her speech, she also referred to the children of Baba Ajasin. I want to congratulate all of you. I congratulate all of you for what you are doing. You know the son of whom you are. That's the most important thing. And God Almighty will continue to be with all of you, sir. On this note, on behalf of my boss, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Odunya Akeredolu, we want to congratulate the entire family of Ajasin. We are proud of the family, and we pray that God Almighty will continue to bless you and build the foundation. For the donation, even where it's not on the program, the chairman of the occasion has also given us a paper that all of us must donate. We will definitely do something that we know that some of us who are deputy governors today, we will leave here tomorrow. My boss, who is governor today, will definitely leave here tomorrow. So we must always continue to say that the foundation is well run. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Governor. Now, I believe some of us would like to ask questions for the guest speaker and the discussants. And I'd like to take 3 male and females. The Pro-Chancellor of the University of Adekunle Ajasin, Dr. Tunji Abayomi. Thank you.
I'd like to actually thank Malam El-Rufai. You are actually a pathfinder for great ideas, and I have interacted with you for many years. I thank you. But I'm actually talking about elite consensus, the 5 pillars of that consensus. I'm surprised that you excluded education, and it would seem to me that the foundation of the list, rule of law, common citizenship, meritocracy, respect for diversity, and devolution of power is tied to education. It would seem to me education. So why have you excluded education? As a corollary, do you think this consensus is possible without a consensus on constitution to govern us? In other words, a constitutional consensus among the peoples of Nigeria.
Thank you.
And finally, sir, you said 1 minute, sir.
Yes,
it's less than
it's
a
almost.
minute. So, finally, I have only spent 50 seconds.
Okay,
sir.
go on.
Finally, sir, Governor, do you not think that with the very distinguished presentation today, and as you can see, the young and the old stood for you in Ondo State, and that is very rare. You have to make sense for the elder people to stand for you in Ondo State and clap for you. You made a whole lot of sense today. Now, do you not think that this kind of colloquium is desirable among governors so that you can share ideas that will be useful to help the people of Nigeria to survive?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You want to take the lady? Yes.
Good day, everybody. My name is Lady Edema Irom, and I'm Cross River. And I went through all the trouble to be here because I believe in the project. And I want to commend His Excellency. Good delivery. I am a woman, married, children, everything. But I want to also dwell around this elite consensus. And I want to look at common citizenship as it relates to women. There's this issue of I am married from Cross River State. My father is from Lagos State. I can't run election in either Lagos or in Cross River State. You rise in the civil service, and because you're a woman, you can't get to a certain level. Go to your father's place. Go to your husband's place. I mean, we no go marry or we no go be, you know, it's so confusing, and for some of us it's even worse. I want to run for the president of this country someday. And I'm coming somewhere. I was born and raised in the UK, in Birmingham. And they just told me that, Dema, you're just overambitious. Number one, you're a woman, go and sit down. Number two, who told you you can run? Go to the UK and run. Dual citizenship. You can't run election in this country. I think in the course of this national discourse, some of these issues, if we must carry women along, they are very important. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman there.
Sirs and mans, permit me to stand on the existing protocol. His Excellency, the keynote speaker, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, that is a wonderful presentation, and we're actually not surprised because you are part of the diamonds among the political class in Nigeria. My name is Musa Toyi Bolani. My questions revolves around the elite consensus you mentioned. In your presentation, sir, you talked about the asymmetry between population growth and economic growth. And somewhere, we need to reconcile certain things. You were quoted somewhere that population growth is actually advantageous to the North because it is a bargaining chip or tool for political hegemony. Now, how do we reconcile this? If indeed we need early consensus to address some of the key issues we have in Nigeria. And part of this is the population explosion. which happen to be more pronounced in the north. So we need to look at the issue of population explosion. What are we going to do about it? How can we build elite consensus about reducing or managing our population growth? And can we really reconcile that particular statement with the lecture you've eloquently delivered, which is characteristic of you anyway? You are a brilliant man anyway. So can you answer that, sir? And I want to say that you are also a potential president of this country. Thank you, sir.
The gentleman, is it pink? Pink? Okay. Yes.
My name is Comrade Kikiwo Ayoade David, the global president of all Ondo State students, both within the country and diaspora. My question is simple, and it's still channeled towards the elite consumption. Consensus rather, sorry. I've come to realization that even we as Nigeria, we have not come to the realization of having a single goal of what we want for Nigeria. The definition of what an average Yoruba man wants for Nigeria is different from what an average Hausa man wants for Nigeria. So my question is, should discussion now be an elite consensus or a roundtable for us to discuss a restructuring system that everybody can have an equal sense and equal distribution of the national good? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have the lady there in red cap?
A lady there, okay.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, thank you for coming to Ondo State. And my leader, distinguished Senator Bode Olajumoke, with due respect, and our mommy on the table.
You are running out of your 1 minute.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to talk on the rule of law and peace and stability in respect to Nigerian politics. I want to talk as a politician. Nigeria is a country where rules don't work, and if it works for the poor. Nigeria is a country that we talk of the rule of law. The judiciary are so impartial that you don't even get the right justice from the judiciary, which should be the last hope of any common man. I want to talk about the violence that is going on in Nigerian politics. Whether the man likes it or not, with due respect to my fathers in the house, Nigerian women are more in population than the men. If half of the population is sick, can ever Nigeria be ever referred to as a country that be economically developed? Women are not educated enough. The constitution is not gender sensitive. And see the way women are being treated with impunity. I want to ask now, if the youths are above 45 and the women about 50, let us say the men now, they're about 35. If 65 of the population is violent in politics, violence in religion, violence in social amenities, everybody is selfish and partial, and we have leaders who are not qualified to be leaders, where do Nigeria go from there? Can we ever achieve the peace and stability we are talking about? Majority of Nigerians are poor and there is hunger on the land. What do we do? Thank you very much.
The last question. The last question over there.
The man in blue.
The man in blue at the back.
I stand on the existing protocol. You spoken well, but I believe, and I want to ask, all that you have discussed today, you really discuss among your fellow governors? You discuss to the people at the helm of affairs. They are wonderful things. But I think if you have done that, I think Nigeria will have been a better place to live. Please, let your speech be made available to us, and we keep it as a compendium. So at the end of the day, we're able to say, El-Rufai said this, and whenever we see our president, if we have opportunity, we say this is what El-Rufai said, and I hope we'll be able to follow it. We look forward to seeing that. Thank you, sir.
I just said that's the last. The governor has to go back.
My name is Tosin King. My question goes to Governor Malam El-Rufai.
Yes.
He mentioned the local government elections in Kaduna State, which I'm quite impressed about. That is the digital, mobile, electronic voting. Sir, please, how can we replicate this across state and federal governments? I mean, state and federal level. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you very, very much. And that's it. Mr. Governor, you kindly please respond to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the Deputy Governor for his kind remarks and the discussants for all their views. I will start with some of the comments by the discussants, and then I'll go to the questions. I'm sorry I didn't dwell much on the importance of ICT. It is because I consider ICT a tool. It is not, it's like pen and paper. It's a tool. It's what you do with it. And as you correctly observed, we have ICT built in everything we do. Our tax, our everything is based on ICT. So I didn't think I have to talk about it. But on the aspect of jobs, I omitted a very important piece of information. We have the biggest ICT hub in northern Nigeria, in Kaduna ICT. It was a donation. The building was donated by Zenith Bank. And we have trained hundreds. The World Bank gave us, started with a grant of $1 million. And we took young people and gave them training in ICT skills. And some of them have already started making money online, So yes, you are right. ICT is a very important tool. It's also a major source of jobs. We have gone further. We are collaborating with an Israeli company that will start teaching our secondary school children how to code. So coding will be introduced as a compulsory subject in our secondary school. So we are doing all that. Anyone that ignores the importance as well as the dangers of ICT in planning the future, I think, will miss a big point. So you're absolutely right. Now, coming to the question on elite consensus, Dr. Abayemi said elite consensus excludes education. Yes and no, because the kind of issues we discuss around elite as consensus are cross-cutting issues, not sectoral. Okay, when you discuss broadly where your country wants to go, you can then go to the second level, which is okay. So how do we achieve that in education? How do we achieve that in agriculture, food self-sufficiency, for instance? And health and so on and so forth. Those are not issues that come within the realm of elite consensus. Elite consensus, if you look at all the 5 issues I pointed out, they cut across every sector. They cut across everything, but they are the foundation for now articulating policy directions in various sectors. So that's why education is excluded. Of course, education is in everything. Education is, from meritocracy to citizenship to everything. Education cuts across. But it's not something you discuss because it's a given. It is only when you agree on the broad issues that you can then begin to say, okay, how do we achieve this? In the Western region, for instance, after the elites of the Western region have agreed certain things, they said we will deliver free education. How do we do it? They looked at the cost. Many people forget today that when Chief Awolo introduced taxes to fund the free primary education in the Western region, there were resistance. There were people that shouted. There were demonstrations against it. Of course, he was strong-willed. He insisted, and it went ahead, and now everyone is celebrating it and benefiting, but it was resisted. But that's the second level of discussion. Policy directions do not usually form part of the discussion and lead consensus. The second issue Dr. Abayemi raised is whether a constitutional consensus should not precede a lead consensus. I don't agree. Okay, in the US, for instance, if you look at the Federalist Papers, you see that they debated virtually everything. America is one of the few designed countries in the world. They designed everything from the scratch. Even their dictionary, their language, they spell their color without U. They don't say schedule, they say schedule, the way it is written. So everything about America was designed. But if you look at the Federalist Papers and the debate between James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, you will see the various things that they bounce back and forth, whether they should have a central bank, whether they should whether it should be a confederation or a federation. Those are the kind of discussions that you do before you form a country. But you see, the problem with Nigeria is that it is formed. It's a given. The British created us. They didn't give us a chance to discuss whether we want to be Nigeria or not. They had already given it to us as Nigeria. Okay? And I have no problem with it. Most countries are artificial. You know, people think that, Nigeria is an artificial creation. Tell me which country that is not artificially created. Even Italy of today is a creation of principalities. Italy did not exist 1,000 years ago. It didn't. It was a prince of Venice, prince of this, prince of that came together to form Italy, and then they began to create the Italian national. Okay? After we've been given Nigeria by the British, it was our duty to create a Nigerian nation. We did not do a good job of it. Okay? Our founding fathers did not do a good job of creating a Nigerian nation. They tended to focus on their regions. Okay? They did well, they competed, they did great things. But one thing that they did not do very well was to create a nation out of the various nationalities we have. And that job is still yet to be done. And Dr. Abayemi, I'm challenging you and I, we are now the elites. What they have not done, let us do it now. And we cannot begin by discussing the Constitution, because the Constitution is there. You know, when people talk about the Nigerian Constitution and its flaws, I laugh, because yes, it has flaws. It's a human constitution. It cannot be perfect. But that's why you have room for amendment. That's why you have two chambers of the National Assembly and state assemblies to amend it. Find out what is wrong, walk through the process, amend it. But agree on certain basic foundation that will underpin even the Constitution itself. And in my view, these 5 are the underpinnings that once we agree them, the Constitution can be easily modified to meet those objectives. The problem is our elites have not deeply thought about the dangers to them in not having this consensus as a basis for nation building. And I think it is time that we have a conversation about it. We have had 20 years of democratic rule now. We have seen the problems and the challenges, and there is enough track record of learning, of mistakes and things that we got right that we can draw upon to now have that discussion. And I think it's not too late. One of the young men, raised the issue of whether this consensus is possible, bearing in mind that how someone thinks. No, I don't agree. Look, the ordinary Nigerian from whatever part of Nigeria faces the same problems. Okay? And they all have the same aspirations. It does not matter which ethnic group. Every parent wants his children to enjoy a good life better than his. Every parent wants his children to have education. Everyone wants to have access to decent health care. Okay? These are things that people face every day. Every Nigerian faces this risk of poverty. Poverty does not know ethnic group or religion. Okay? And if you speak to ordinary Nigerians, forget the noisy ones and the elites that are in this room. If you speak to ordinary Nigerians, what bothers them on a day-to-day basis is how to eat, how to educate their children, how to keep their families healthy. Every other thing is extra. If you give them decent water, good schools, good primary health centers, you can go and do whatever you want.
I think there is a level of consensus at various levels about what we want for Nigeria. The problem we have is that people at the top have profited from dividing us and putting us into ethnic and religious boxes so that they can continue doing what they want and you are not watching. I don't agree. I have gone around this country. I have lived in every part of this country. I did my youth service in Abeokuta in 1980. And that was when I discovered that everything I was being told about how developed the South was, how developed, when I served in Abeokuta, it did not have running water. I did not have running water in my tap. So, what are you telling me about Abeokuta being more advanced than Kaduna? They were all the same. Our problems are similar. We just pretend and listen to the voices of people that want to divide us. Our problems are similar. And we can have a discussion around how to solve them without referring to the ethnicity or religion of the person. These are all divisive strategies. They are not real. They are not real. I don't agree with you. I think we can have elite consensus around our country as a nation, and we can move it forward. I don't agree that this consensus has to be regional or ethnic or whatever. The problems are the same. Dr. Abayemi is suggesting that we should have colloquium amongst governors. Well, I agree with you, but we do in a way. The deputy governor on the state can confirm the Nigerian Governors Forum meets every month, and we share experiences. And we have what we call peer review mechanism, in which we learn from states. For instance, I sent a delegation to Ondo State to look at your primary healthcare system. Because when I looked at the rankings, Ondo was #1 in terms of primary healthcare delivery. So I said, our team should go and learn. You understand? I sent a team to Osun State before we started our primary school feeding program, so that we learn how they are doing their own and we try to adjust to our own circumstances. So we have these processes. Of course, governors are the most unpopular elected politicians, elected public officers in the country, so people don't see it. But we do speak to each other and we learn from each other. The tax code that I explained to you that we enacted in Kaduna State has been borrowed by 7 other states. 7 states have come to Kaduna to take the tax code, to look at it and adapt it to their own state and enact. So we do it. We learn from each other. We don't do it publicly like this, inviting people and having interactions, but maybe that's what should be suggested. But we do a lot of, learning amongst ourselves. Madam talked about common citizenship as it affects women and talked about dual citizenship. I think what I outlined about common citizenship takes care of everyone. Okay? Because it should not matter who you are, where you are from, who you have married, whether you're male or female. It should not matter. What should matter is that you live in Ondo State, you pay your taxes, you contribute to the development of the state, and you should be able to run for office. And nobody should say that you are not an indigene. Nobody should say that. The Constitution of Nigeria does not recognize indigene. The word indigence is used only once in the Constitution, when it comes to the appointment of ministers. The whole chapter of the Constitution on citizenship talks about how you can claim Nigerian citizenship. And there, in 2 places, the word indigenous was used. But indigenship is not a qualification for contesting political office. It is not a qualification for admission to any university or polytechnic. It's not. We have created a monster that is retarding the development of this state, of this country. When I was going through primary school, most of my teachers were people from outside Kaduna State. Okay? But when I came back, I found that all those teachers, no so-called non-Indian, had been forced out and replaced by motor park touts parading as teachers, just because they are indigenous. We had to do something about it. And when I was doing my teacher recruitment, we advertised and we took teachers from every part of Nigeria. Because I tell people that push this indigenship narrative, when I came into office. I said, let me ask you, when you go to a hospital and you are sick, do you ask that you will not see a doctor who is not an indigene? Or when you board an aircraft, do you ask that the pilot must be an indigene before you enter? It is hypocrisy at the highest level. But the most hypocritical of it all are the elites who push this, because look at them, go to their homes or their businesses and see whether every employee in the company is from their village or from their ethnic group. They go and get the best people from any part of the world. But in their politics, they preach indigenship. It is hypocrisy and it is retarding our country. The most diverse country in the world today is America. Is it a surprise that it is the most advanced? Diversity promotes progress. Diversity encourages competition. Competition brings out the best in people. This indigenship settler narrative, unless we kill it, it will kill Nigeria. We have to kill it before it kills Nigeria. It is a big, big problem. So, if you look at the principles I've outlined, which basically are around residency qualifications, you don't need to worry about whether you're male or female. Of course, we live in a patriarchal society. The rules of the game are stacked against women. Okay? They are stacked against women. Even if you look at the political party, you look at the position in the political party, only one is reserved for women. Woman leader. Okay? If a woman decides to contest for party secretary, people will be looking at her strangely. Okay? And, you know, madam, the women don't help it. They don't help themselves. If a woman comes out to contest, if it is true you're more than 50% of the population, how come when a woman contests, she doesn't win? Even the women don't want to vote for women. Okay? So that there is a lot, you know, there is a lot that needs to be done to change this system. Okay? There is a lot that needs to be done. And it is not only here, it's all over the world. Okay? But I don't want you to look at it from that narrow lens. Let us just have a system that treats everyone equally. Once you have that system, it will normalize itself over time. One of the young people there talked about my views about population explosion and so on. Yes, I gave those views and I stand by them. And by the way, throughout my speech, there was never a time I said we should reduce population. What I pointed out is that we are growing at 2.1%. Yeah? Our economy is growing at 2.1%. Our population is growing at 2.6%. So we are getting poorer. I did not say let's slow down the 2.6. Because today, the two fastest growing countries in the world are India and China. They have 1-point-something billion people. Population is power. Don't listen to anyone that tells you that population is a bad thing. It is not. What is bad is to have a population that is illiterate and unhealthy. If your population is educated and healthy, and you unleash their creativity on the world, you will do well. China has proved it. India is proving it. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that we should ramp up our economic growth so that we're doing double digit. We should be doing 10%, 11%. Because if we're doing 10, 11%, our population is growing at 3%, we still have net 7% growth. That is the way to do it. Population is very important. The danger is, which is what we have in northern Nigeria, the danger is to have a large population that is not educated and not healthy. That's the danger. That's what we have to work at ensuring we eliminate. I hope I've answered your question and clearly, and you understand. I have nothing against population. I have 9 children. It will be hypocritical of me to look at anyone and say control population. I don't believe in it. I may even have more, who knows? So, Madam talked about rule of law, women and youths are excluded. I don't know what to say about that. She complained and complained about Nigeria and so on, and I'm used to hearing those complaints, but I have no response other than to say, yes, everything you may say may be right. You may be discriminated against, youth may be discriminated against. That is called life. It is life. You just have to be there, get your hands dirty, and fight and fight and fight, and gradually it will change. Rome is not built in a day. Discrimination has existed from the beginning of time. So I'm not going to give you any silver bullet and tell you that, judiciary will be fine, people will get justice, youths will be well treated. No, it's not going to happen today. It will take time. But so long as we all agree there is a problem and we keep working at it, one day we'll get there. That is my attitude. My colleague there said, where is he, the guy with the white hair? Yeah. I said my colleague because I'm also gray-haired, He said, he asked me whether I express these views to fellow governors. I do, when I have the opportunity. But you see, you have to understand that governors are all equal. Governors are all equal. Some states are bigger than others. For instance, I laugh at my brother, the governor of Ekiti State. I say, Ekiti State is so small. It can fit in Kaduna State like 10 times, geographically. Population, I don't know, Ekiti, maybe there are 2 million or so. In Kaduna City alone, I have 3 million people. Okay? But we are equal. And today, in fact, the governor of Ekiti State, one of the smallest states, is the chairman of Nigeria's Governors Forum. That's how it works. Okay? My point is, governors cannot force other governors to accept their views. I have my views. I'm open about them. I express them bluntly. That's why many people don't like me. There are two kinds of people in Nigeria, as far as Nasir El-Rufai is concerned. Those that like me very much, and those that just hate me with a passion. There is no gray area with me. There is no gray area. And I like it that way. It's fine. Okay? But the point is this, whatever views I have, I cannot impose or preach to other governors. Because every governor is independent and he is accountable to his electorate and his state and his circumstances. So what works for me in Kaduna may not work here. So I can only share my experiences and hope that, some of it may be useful and relevant and will be picked by the governors and so on. Many of these views, I have expressed them more strongly in our meeting of the Northern State Governors Forum. Okay? Because I believe that there are serious problems that need to be confronted head-on in northern Nigeria. But having done that, that's all I can do. I cannot force anyone. Even the president, to be quite fair to him, even the president cannot force a governor to do anything under our constitution. States are fairly independent. States have nearly the same autonomy as the regions of old. So even the president cannot really force a state governor to do anything. And that is how it is. But we, as I explained, we talk to each other a lot, and we share a lot of experiences, and there is a lot of learning in between. But, the fact that, I have these views does not mean it has any influence on other governors, unless they choose to do so. And that is just the reality, and I'm being very honest with you. And the Deputy Governor of Ondo State can explain further if you want. And you ask whether I express these views to those at the helm of affairs. If what you mean by those at the helm of affairs is the President of Nigeria, yes, I do. I am a privileged governor. Even among governors, I'm privileged. I have superior access to the President, and he's used to me. I mean, we were in the trenches, we were in opposition together, and used to my he's used to, he has accepted me as this is how he is. He will come to me and tell me what nobody has the audacity to tell me. And he likes it, and he loves me for it. So I express my views, anytime I have views, I do so. You would know about a famous letter I wrote to him in September 2016, which was leaked by the cabal in the villa. By the way, the cabal also doesn't like me, so we but yes, I express these views. I express my views, particularly to the president, with whom I have a very privileged and special relationship. There is a difference between expressing views and then these views translating into policy and programs and projects and implementation. So, there is a huge gap. Some of the views, end up becoming policy. Some die along the way. That is life, Then the question about replication of electronic voting. Frankly, I don't see any reason why it cannot be replicated. It's very simple. The voting machine is designed to allow a voter to choose which party, and once you finish voting, it prints your ballot. It prints, so there is even ballot paper in the end to validate. Of course, the moment you finish voting, the results are out. But you have ballot paper because our electoral law still requires ballot paper. Of course, our voting machine can be adapted to be used nationally, and I can't remember how much each of them costs us, but we did the numbers and we found that it was cheaper to have the voting machines than even to print ballot papers. So in one election cycle, we recovered the cost. So it's much cheaper, it's more efficient, and if you put in electronic transmission to the from the ballot from the voting machine, it can send the results almost immediately, so that immediately you finish the election, within 1 hour you can have the results for the whole country. So it can be done. Now, people are concerned about electronic transmission of results because of hacking, and our professor of ICT there will tell you that the biggest risk and the biggest source of future jobs now is cyber security. Okay, because the server of the Electoral Commission of Kenya was hacked into and results were changed. This is part of the reason why in the last election INEC chose not to use electronic transmission. But these technologies are always being improved. New ways of cyber security are emerging, and I believe that one day will be there. We have used electronic voting. The machines are there. We are going to use them again because in another year, I think, or two, we have another round of local government elections. And we've amended our own state electoral law to recognize the electronic voting machines and the results and so on and so forth. So it was okay. Of course, we lost a few local governments. I think we lost like 4 or 5 local governments. But out of 23, it's still fine. And we didn't mind. So I thank you very much for your questions. I hope I've answered them as best as I can, and thank you very much.
We want to thank the discussants and make the following award. Professor Adenike Oshofison. Please, you have an award from the Ajasin Foundation. It's going to be passed across very quickly. Mrs. Okuiboye, can you please join me in giving out this award? Thank you, ma'am. And Professor Oshofison have our award. Can you please come out, ma'am? Thank you. Just this way, do that. Thank you very much. It's 10. Professor Oshofison is number 1. Number 2. Thanks so much. The second person is Dr. Olufemi Adu. Mommy will also help us in quickly. Thank you so much, sir. The third person in that order is Honorable Engineer J.F. Adeyemi. Thank you so much, man. We have to thank His Excellency
Governor El Rufai for honoring this invitation. Our people from Kaduna State, Yoruba people in Kaduna State, I've asked us to thank you very specially, sir, for the honor you have done this race. Today, you have a full-fledged commissioner, you have 4 special advisors, you have 1 managing director.
Can you applaud that, please? Can you applaud that? Can you applaud that, please?
We were just told that when you were here delivering this lecture, a major electricity project in Kaduna was commissioned by the ambassador of the European Union. And the managing director of that company is Dolapo Pokuola from Osun State. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. For those who say you don't like the Yorubas, that's a piece of information for them. And please, for those who want to know more about His Excellency, go and read his memoir, The Accidental Public Servant. May I invite the Deputy Governor of Ondo State, His Excellency, Honorable Agola Ajayi, to help us present this award to His Excellency, Governor El Rufai of Kaduna State. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Kabiasis, we are sorry for keeping you waiting, sir. In the next 5 minutes, we'll be done. Thank you so much, sir. The chairman, our dear amiable Dr. Olajumoke, you're welcome, sir. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. For you to start for him, thank you so much, sir. We also, in a quick succession, invite Mrs. Tokunbo Ajasin here to make this award 2-in-1 to the governor of our state, the host, our dear Arakuni Rotimi Akeredolu. In 2017, he had a plan, but he wasn't around, so we get a package to do and the one for this year, so that you can start. Your Excellency, will you please thank on behalf of His Excellency to receive the award? Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good luck. Take the second one to him, quickly. Take the second one to her, quickly. Thank you so much, sir, Your Excellency. 2-in-1 award for 2017 and for 2019.
Sir, look here, sir.
While that is going on behalf of Ajasin Foundation, I want to make a vote of thanks.
Look here, sir.
I want to thank everybody who have made time out to be here with us today. We can't thank everybody one by one, but we thank our royal fathers, my father, and we want to say that we thank His Excellency, who is being represented by His Excellency Deputy Governor. Thanks so much for finding time to be here. We thank the guest lecturer, Your Excellency, for finding time to be here. We thank the chairman, our own Dr. Olajumoke, for being here. Thank you so much, sir. We thank the representative of the Board of Trustees. We want to thank our royal fathers. I want to go on my knees to thank you for being here, sirs, and for the time you have taken to be with us. The Lord continue to preserve you and honor you, sirs. We want to thank everybody on the floor. We are so special to Ajasin Foundation. We can't be named one by one. But we want to thank you for the sacrifice of time, for your patience, for your support. We wish you safe journey to your destinations. As we look forward to having you around for the 2020 edition, God having us alive and blessing us. Have a good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Please, we want to take indulgence. As we sing the national anthem, we give our guests the opportunity to move out before we join them. Thank you, sir.
see you. How are you? Thanks for coming.
Excellency. Bros. I live in Kaduna South.
Your Excellency, sir. Sir. Your Excellency, sir.
Not only in the whole Ondo state, which is governed diligently, but also across the country and elsewhere. The famous free education policy of the Action Group, which was responsible for the educational revolution in the then Western region, was called for by him. As an elder statesman, Papa, even in his frail old age, contributed immensely to establishing the country from the firm grip of military dictatorship, and the success achieved through his leadership led to the restoration of democracy, which we all serve today, all in sovereign. The Colloquium, which I mentioned earlier, succeeded in creating a framework of principles for the years, and often preferred patent solutions that advance democracy, the discourses which have been reproduced as monographs, as well as Papa's autobiography,